Today we're going to talk about adding integers. Now that may sound offhand like adding. Come on, we've been doing that since early in elementary school. That's fair. But I'll tell you the truth, even for high schoolers, negative numbers can sometimes be tricky. So that's part of why we want to emphasize how to add integers. So first, let's talk about if you ride a bike to school, which is 3 miles away. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this down here. So here's your home, so to speak. Here you're starting at point 0, and you ride your bike 3 miles to school. After school, you ride to your aunt's house, which is 6 miles farther in the same direction. So I'm here at 3 and I've got to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now I ride 6 more miles on my bike to get to my aunt's house. Probably she's a rich aunt who has all the best after school snacks. That's why you go there. It's worth it. Lastly, you head to the movies, which is 4 miles in the opposite direction that you've been heading. So again, we're starting here at point 9. We go down 1, 2, 3, 4 miles back to where we started. So there we are at the movie theater. So you can see where we ended is 5 miles away from our starting point. So a number line can be one way you can help with things, because another way we could solve this is just with numbers, but I want to show you how visually sometimes a number line can help you think through what you're really doing. Because they said we traveled 3 miles on our bike toward school, then 6 miles more in the same direction. So since I'm going in the same direction, that's why I add the 6. But then I reverse direction and travel 4 miles back to the movie. So I could say 3 plus 6 is 9, and then 9 minus 4 is 5. So I can get the same answer either way, but I just wanted to show you how sometimes a number line can make it easier to understand how working with this works. Okay, these two rules are vitally important for you to get in your brain. It's also really important for you to remember this is the rules for addition problems. So you want to look and see whether we're adding or subtracting. Our next lesson will be on subtracting, but today we're just focusing on adding. So first, if the signs are the same, meaning if they're both positive or if they're both negative, then you add the two integers together and keep the same sign. So for example, if we just ignore the negative 4 for a second, or the minus 4, we had a positive 3 plus a positive 6. Those signs are the same, so I just said 3 plus 6 is 9. And since they were both positive, I made my answer positive. But if you look at number 1 down here, and number 2 for that matter, these are both negative numbers. So when they're both the same sign, we've got to follow the first rule. When the signs are the same, we add them together. So I say 3 plus 4 is 7. And since they're negative, their answer has to be negative also. On number 2, they're both negative. So I say 3 plus 6 is 9. And since they're both negative, their answer has to be negative. So you add the two numbers together and then keep the sign you started with. But when the signs are different, it could be a positive first and negative second, or it could be a negative first and a positive second. Their order doesn't matter. The point is one of them is positive and one of them is negative. When that happens, you subtract the integers. Always do the bigger one minus the smaller one, the integers, and keep the sign of the integer with the greatest absolute value. So remember, absolute value means you change the negatives to a positive. You keep the positives positive. So kind of you just ignore the signs and just say, well, which one's bigger? Let me demonstrate that in these next two. We have a positive 1, and we're adding that to a negative 4. So that's how I know I need to go with this second rule, because the signs are different. So I ignore the negative and I just say, okay, take the bigger one 4 minus the smaller one 1, and I get 3. Then I have to look and say, okay, is 1 bigger or is 4 bigger? Well, obviously 4 is bigger, And since 4 is negative, our answer is also negative. So we're going to follow the same pattern with number 4. The signs are different. I have a positive 5 and a negative 2. The signs are different, so I need to subtract the bigger one minus the smaller one. And I need to keep the sign of the bigger one. Well, what's bigger, 2 or 5? 5. Since the 5 is positive, our answer stays positive. So you either keep the sign that both of them have, like we did in 1 and 2, or you keep the sign of the bigger number, like we did in 3 and 4. So we'll practice this more on the back. So step 1, we're doing addition. Okay, so we use the addition rules. Step 2, we see if the signs are the same or are different. These two signs are the same. So if they're the same, then we add and keep the sign. 6 plus 14 is 20, and we keep the sign negative that they both have. Number 6, we're adding, so we use the addition rules. Negative 2 plus negative 7. Since we have the same signs, we'd add these two numbers together, 2 plus 7, and keep the sign they started with. Okay, 7, we switch gears. We have different signs. We have one negative and one positive. So the rule here is to subtract and keep the sign of the bigger number. Well, 9 is bigger than 4, so we'll keep the negative sign. Okay, similar problem on number 8. We have different signs. We have one positive number and one negative number. So the rule is to subtract them and keep the sign of the bigger number, which obviously 9 is bigger than 4, so we keep a positive sign for our answer. Four plus negative 8. So we have different signs again, positive 4 and negative 8. When we have different signs, we subtract them. And we keep the sign of the bigger number. Since 8 is bigger than 4, we make it a negative 4. On number 10, we have the same signs. They're both negative. So we add them both together, 1 plus 12, and keep the sign the same as it was to start with. Since they were both negative, our answer is negative.